This is Tracer Talks, conversations with top industry experts on trending topics for brands and digital risk protection, featuring your host, Tracer CEO, Rick Farnell.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Tracer Talk series. Today, we're joined by Jimmy Kryskowiak from Church and Dwight. Jimmy's a brand protection manager. Jimmy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate you guys having me here. Looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. Let's kick things off. So, Jimmy, for everyone on the show today, talk a little bit about how you got into brand protection.
Oh, that's a great story. If you want to go the real truth, I was a cop previous, right, in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I went to a burglary call at a store in a strip mall. Long story short, he happened to be selling counterfeit shoes, and I got a call from the Secretary of State of North Carolina's investigative task force to ask, for doing follow-up. And they were doing counterfeit investigations. And I was like, wow, this is very interesting. Like, nowhere on my agency was anybody doing this. So I was like, this is my way to kind of itch out my niche in the department. And from there, I'm here, since 2009. It's been a pretty long time, and I left law enforcement in 2017 to pursue this career.
Well, it's a great story. I love it because kind of every day I wake up and what we try to say to the team, we are literally protecting kind of the digital authenticity of billions of consumers out there on behalf of all the wonderful brands that we support. So in a lot of ways, I've had folks say, wow, you guys are almost like the internet cops. And so really appreciate that story. So let's dive right in. Over the last probably 6-9 months, you had a really nice win that's a little bit different than traditional brand protection. So it was around a product launch. Maybe walk the audience through kind of that success story and how you were able to really help the product team be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. So traditionally, brand protection in our organization is just trademark violations, infringements, trademark infringements and copyright infringements. This particular situation, we had a brand that was launching in a different country, and they were having a hard time kind of gaining traction, right? They could not make penetration, like they couldn't be seen, right? And what we found is that some of these products were being diverted and they were being sold on some of the major e-commerce platforms. So we identified a regulatory violation, right? So it's not normally within the scope of our team, but in speaking to the Tracer team, Connor, and then Ben, we're like, hey, we do have this brand on our contract. Can you guys, if we get a template from this platform, can you put your AI on it and do some, machine automation and workflow and just and they got to work and boom, they were doing so much good work in that area. We got a response back from the brand saying, hey, thank you for your efforts. Without your efforts, it would have been very difficult, if not impossible, for us to actually launch this product within this region. So I attribute a lot of that to just Tracer's willingness to turn on a dime, to do non-traditional brand protection, and not say no. I've received that in the past among the vendors, and that really solidified my confidence in Tracer, saying you said you were going to do it and you did it.
Yeah, I love the can-do attitude of the team. It's kind of a piece of our culture, no matter what. We want to make you successful and therefore your brand successful. And I think that particular case is a good one because a little bit non-traditional, where prior to a product launch, if we're able to go in and remove a lot of the social media and a lot of the potentially even paid search activity that might be diverting traffic from the brand that is actually looking to, make a splash, it's a really big opportunity. So appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit. Were you able to measure that in any way, or with your partner on the business side? What are some things, everyone talks about return on investment, but what are some things that were tangible that you and your business partner kind of felt was the return metrics?
Oh, they 100% saw the results in sales. So they directly attributed to their increase in sales for our efforts and Tracer's efforts in that kind of in that area. So yeah, it was measured with immediate return on investment, showing the increase plus accrediting much of the launching to the efforts.
That's incredible. Yeah, and it's providing more bang for the buck for your marketing team and the team that's actually trying to get in front of consumers to purchase product. So if you can remove all the noise in the diversion and have all those dollars that your team is spending just go directly to your market, I love it. I absolutely love it. Let's talk a little bit about Church and Dwight at the top level. Maybe describe kind of the strategy that you guys are operating under as it relates to brand protection.
Yeah, so we have a pretty small team. So we work on a limited budget, limited manpower. So we want to do the most with what we have. And so we really refine online, we really refine our processes to what we call the market, an MVP program, like market visibility and customer penetration. And that's where how we kind of utilize the Tracer team is because you have the AI, you have the machine automation, and you have a place to house all that data. And what that does for us is easy. It's one-stop shop. We go into the Tracer Protect tool and we can pull that data. From that data, we can make strategic analysis and of what's being seen in the online environment, and we can make decisions off of that. So we use that MVP kind of strategy to hit platforms in which we're selling on. So we want to help, remove counterfeits from the markets that we're selling in, right? To help bolster business. But at the same time, if that's where all customers are going to buy goods, then we want to make sure that those customers are protected as well, right? Not just heading towards some of these other platforms where we may not necessarily sell on, but are still providing counterfeit goods. So in that aspect, we really want to hit the platforms that we sell on for that immediate ROI, which we just described. Then we have other platforms that we know in certain regions that provide products to order. So customizable products, minimum order quantities. And then we use Tracer, we call our broadsword strategy there is we just want you to take all those ads down. We're really not looking for metrics. We're really looking to whittle down the amount of ads because we know in brand protection, and I know that Tracer AI will pick up on it and say, hey, these are repeat offenders. These are big time sellers. We've taken them down 6, 7, 8 times and they're popping back up. What that allows us to do is in our offline investigations, focus on specific sellers, and then we can make that kind of, without taking a shot in the dark, we kind of know where the board is. We have to be able to, now we can narrow it down to certain sellers.
Love it. So you described a couple of other departments. Maybe go into that a little bit further. How do you work with other departments across Church and Dwight to have a coordinated strategy?
So for the online purpose, we share information. This is what we're seeing. Hey, when Tracer went in there, your ad was sitting at this spot. Now it's sitting higher, right? So we can kind of show them, right, something they also pay for from other providers that provide those services. Say, look, Tracer can also show you the same thing, and kind of give them that market assessment. Here's where you were. Here's where you are. Here's what we have removed. And we take that data to the teams. That helps everywhere from e-commerce, digital commerce to help, we can say, hey, this is the keyword that's pinging the most counterfeits. We don't use this keyword. Why don't we start using it? Now we're owning that keyword instead of the counterfeiters. So it helps to give that return on investment for business intelligence, things that we're already in there looking at, right? And we can use that.
Absolutely love it. Love it. So we talked prior a little bit about drop shipping and some challenges there. Maybe walk through the challenges that you see in that area, and then kind of how we're working together to try to help that be a little bit better for your consumers.
Oh, absolutely. So drop shipping in general is if an individual, you probably see them on the internet all the time, on TikTok or some other social media platform, is saying, hey, come, I'll help you build your Amazon business, right? So what they're doing is they're taking people who don't ever touch the product, don't ever see the product, and say, go to this website and create your own online store on these platforms. You never touch the product. You don't have to have any inventory. You just do minimum order quantities. So what happens is, and Tracer Protect tool allows us to watch this almost in real time. These sellers will pop on, sell, get off, pop on, sell, get off. So it's literally like Keystone Cops of us trying to run around and find them and get them. And so we understood it. This is like the end of that chain. Why don't we start at the beginning? And what does that mean? All these drop shippers are getting their goods from certain platforms and certain ads and certain sellers. Well, if we start removing those at a high volume as opposed to the sellers at a high volume, we're going to reduce the amount of ads available, which theoretically should reduce the amount of people having access to those ads, which theoretically should remove the amount of sellers in other platforms that we sell on. So we use Tracer AI and the Tracer team to just really take a broadsword strategy in those regions on those platforms. So the prevalence of those ads offering made to order goods is not as high as it once was.
Love it. Love it. So Jimmy, maybe for some folks that are interesting stats. So about 40% of our customers this past year have never actually had brand protection, formal brand protection from a platform provider. So, I think that the trend line is that more and more brands, large and small, are realizing that having a tool like Tracer integrated into their strategy is really important. But for maybe some of the folks that are entering the space that haven't done this before, what advice would you give them?
As far as online or?
Yeah, I guess just if they're kind of trying to create a brand protection strategy, they're trying to navigate, where do I start? How do I get the most, value for the investment?
Perfect.
How do you go about it? How do you set up a strategy? Yeah, just however you want to answer that.
That's a really good question, because I was in this position 4 years ago where I was coming from another team, but really come to Church and Dwight to begin the program. And the first thing we looked at is, what does your IP portfolio look like? How strong is your intellectual property? Now, my manager's an IP attorney. She's really, she's really good at what she does. So our IP portfolio was on point. Everywhere we go, we're doing gap analysis, see where we need them, where we don't need them, right? Whether it's a recordation at the porch or anything like that. That would be the first thing, because without that, Tracer has nothing to go on. You guys don't have any leverage to say, yeah, you have to remove this. Your IP portfolio needs to be on point. Then you need to kind of do like a risk assessment of your brands and say, okay, well, how vulnerable is each brand? And there are so many different variables depending on what industry you're in: pharma, fast-moving consumer goods, fashion, right? Obviously, the more popular your brand is, the more likely it's going to be counterfeited, right? Or knocked off, right? And then it, again, really solidifying the mission and vision of the team. Like, what do you want to accomplish? Our mission is to get to the root cause, the factory. How do we get there? Well, we can trace through sellers, right? We can go there and go to these sites, make test buys from sellers. The long route, right? We start from the end. Or we can use Tracer's tool on the back end to start pulling data and metadata, and then we can kind of go from there. So once you identify your portfolio, do the risk assessment, then it's really creating what we've done here at Church and Dwight is a counterfeit aware culture, right? So Jeremy Wilson and ACAP, they wrote along with a whole bunch of other brand representatives, they wrote a book, right? And around this theory called total business solution approach, or total business approach solution, where you basically are taking your brand protection team and having them teach the internal organization how to look at their job through a brand protection lens. So for the salespeople, you're already on there. You need to let me know what, when I go and talk to them, the stuff we already talked about, great, but what else? What would you never do in a sales profession, right? If we're with marketing, what would you never do in the marketing and packaging and R&D? And say, where are all these things? Because how does that help? That helps you. If I say, hey, on this brand, we would never use this type of packaging, we would never do this, and we train your analysts and they see that, then a Tracer AI picks up on that when you make an enforcement. Now all of a sudden, so you're finding all of these things. So the thing is, make sure your IP portfolio is good. Do an assessment of your brands. Do a counterfeit aware culture, right? Making sure everybody understands what you do, and just have fun at it. Like, you got to have fun. You got to want to do this. because it is very, very monotonous at times, but you gotta want to do it, and it's fun. And the way that we do it is every time we do something, we realize we're saving a life, right? Sometimes it's right on the front end, depending on what industry you're in. Sometimes it's on the back end at the beginning of the supply chain. Maybe it's human trafficking, right? For the people that create the products, or maybe it's the people that they're forced to model and put on these different platforms, right? So all of that's been linked to brand protection or to counterfeiting globally, right? So you're already doing good in the industry, and it's whatever you need to do to get that message out and help yourself continue when those days are like, oh my gosh, 2,000 ads in, you're like, why am I doing this? And then all of a sudden you come up on that one ad on the social media and go, wow, this individual is probably human trafficked. Now that it settles your soul, and so you got to have that passion for it.
Yeah, and I think the threat vector of the bad guys is really quite wide, and I think the sophistication that they're able to deploy with advanced technologies and artificial intelligence and generative AI in their hands to create content that looks amazing, that is so compelling. So we're seeing a trend line where, it's more and more sophisticated attacks on consumers. And I think at Tracer, when we partner together, to really utilize all of the things that we can do. So you mentioned some novel things that might be able to come in from the sales teams from your field. We kind of take those and we try to understand where those exist anywhere. So social media, paid search, websites, mobile apps, online marketplaces globally, and really try to have a holistic approach to find it with software. Now, all of our analysts, as you know, Jimmy, they need to verify the results, but as we're verifying the results, we're able to then go find, more of the bad guys and take them down. Ultimately, we want to take these folks down as quickly as possible. I don't think we're ever going to collectively stop this from happening, but if we can shrink it from, say, 10 days down to a day, every single day or every single hour that we can remove something that has an opportunity to be in front of millions of consumers, that's kind of the aim there. So I really appreciate the partnership on that one.
For me, that makes total sense because your ability, Tracer's ability to turn on a dime for your brand really shows not you're not just saying this, but you're committed to this and you really understand the brand protection industry, and you're not offering me an a la carte service for everything I want to do at an extra upcharge, right? Sometimes I feel like I'm at a restaurant and every time I want something, there's an upcharge, but not with Tracer. It was, hey, this is what we're going to do. And it shows your knowledge of what you just explained. And so for us, it was a great synergy.
I love it, and we're trying harder to provide more flexibility because certainly, I'm 2.5 years now into the market, and I think we've done a lot of really great things. We've kind of offered a new outcome-based pricing. We've implemented some highly sophisticated artificial intelligence to really help scale. But I think probably the big one that you're hitting on is we're really trying to provide maximum flexibility and choice to meet our brands where they need us, right? So instead of a year-long contract to just do this one country or region or a marketplace or whatever, no, things change. Leading up to Christmas, it might be totally different. You might have a mix of brands in a threat vector in an area that you really want to spend your investment on, and a little bit quiet, if you will, on some others. So we're trying to provide that flexibility back to you, and it's feedback from you, Jimmy, quite frankly, that has allowed us to change our model. So really, really love it. And on that, if you don't mind, kind of talk a little bit about maybe the important things. So specifically from us, and I'm of the ilk that all boats rise in a rising tide. Like we are all trying to do better to take bad guys down, period. So we all have to raise our game. But what are the things that really matter to you in our relationship?
First and foremost is your ability to adapt. When I ask, when our brand is experiencing an issue that we didn't foresee, it's going to the team, going to Ben and saying, hey, I need you to flip on this. And like, we got it. I love that email that comes from him and says, on it. It wasn't a fluff email. It wasn't, hey, this 4 or 5 says on it. To me, like that's nonverbal communication. Like, look, I respect you as an individual and you're my customer, or my, client, whatever, but I'm on it. That's awesome, right? That shows that, that the commitment is there and they understand. So that's number one. Number two, the fact that like you're training, coming in and spending the whatever amount of time we needed for our team to get up to speed. You guys spent that time. You didn't complain about it. You didn't draw it off of our hours and say, we're going to take this out of your hours, which we've had happen before. They're like, no, we want to ensure that you're able to operate in there too, because now we have multiple people looking at the same data. And so that's that the ability to be adaptable, just the team atmosphere, the willingness to go the extra yard to make sure that we're satisfied. It just feels genuine. There's a genuine relationship. And then not to mention just, the work results are there, right? The technology is there. It works.
I love it. And like I said, I can't say enough about you really pushing us to be better. And we want all of our customers to feel like they can have a live connection into us as a company. Yes, you have a dedicated kind of CSM rep, but really we do listen and we hear, and we're trying to do the best that we can. So we feel like we're just getting started, and it is an absolute pleasure to have you as a customer. So let's move into a fun section. So don't overthink anything. I'm going to rapid fire some questions, whatever comes into your head. We'll have a little bit of fun with this one. So what would you choose for your last meal?
My last meal, pizza, New York.
Oh, what toppings?
Pepperoni, that's it.
Sweet. What superpower would you choose?
Oh gosh. My kids and I have this conversation all the time. But I guess I'd want to be like, Wolverine. It's my favorite comic book hero between him and Gambit, right? So I guess it would be regeneration.
Okay. Most productive time of your day?
The mornings.
Cats or dogs?
Ooh, dogs.
Drink of choice?
Water.
Favorite genre of music?
Oh gosh. I listen on music depending on my mood or what I'm doing, but I would say it would have to be classic rock.
If you had to choose a dessert, what would it be?
New York cheesecake every time.
Wow, all right. Most prized possession?
Most prized possession. I have a Gurkha knife that was handmade for me by a Nepalese royal Gurkha in Nepal.
Wow. And our last one, the best advice you've ever received?
Make yourself an asset.
I love it. All right. Well, Jimmy, really appreciate the time today. Everyone, that was Jimmy Kryskowiak from Church and Dwight. Thanks for joining the show.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Tracer Talks. To see more content on brands and digital risk protection, visit our website, tracer.ai.